Advanced word formation. I love my grandma. She's very wise. Intermediate.
What? No. No.
Advanced word formation. I love my grandma. She's very wise. Intermediate. Do our English test using VR. Advanced word formation. I love my grandma. She's very wise.
What?
Intermediate.
If you have ever felt stuck in your English learning progress as an intermediate learner, well, today's one trick can help you to dramatically change the way that you speak English forever. Now, word formation can help you to really increase your vocabulary and even sound more advanced when you speak. We created this lesson because we had many requests from learners like you to make more on the topic. So if you watch this lesson until the end, you'll get a much better idea of what exactly word formation is and how it can help you to speak English in a more advanced way. Plus, you will never use words the same way again. So grab your notebook because you're going to be taking a lot of notes in today's lesson. And before we continue, I wanted to let you know that if you are new here, every week we help learners like you go from feeling like a lost and insecure English learner to being a confident and successful English speaker. So if that sounds like what you want for your English, then be sure to hit that subscribe button and the bell down below to join our community and not miss a single new lesson. All right, take a look at this text. I love my grandma. She's very wise, but sometimes forgets things. She believes spending time with family is important because it makes our relationship strong. She always speaks to people in a polite way. Now, what if I told you you could make this text sound way more advanced just by applying this concept of word formation? Check it out. I love my grandma. She has a lot of wisdom, but is forgetful sometimes. She believes in the importance of spending time with family because it strengthens our relationship. She always speaks politely to people. Pretty cool, isn't it? Well, in today's lesson, you are going to learn how you can use this one trick to sound more advanced when you speak English. But first, let's quickly understand what word formation is. Word formation basically has to do with the forming of new words with the words that you already know. The key for you to master word formation is learning about prefixes and suffixes. Now, these change the meaning of a word. Prefixes are added to the beginning of the word, and suffixes are added to the end of the word. For example, let's look at the word imperfectly. The first thing you want to do is get to the root or base of the word. In this case, the root is perfect. From there, you add either prefixes or suffixes to change the original meaning. In this example, we have the suffix ly and the prefix im. Also, notice that we use the words differently. For example, he's a perfect swimmer. He swims perfectly. Now you might be wondering, why should I care about prefixes and suffixes and word formation anyway? Well, let me give you 3 reasons. So, first of all, it helps you to reduce the word count in your sentences. For example, instead of saying not aware, you can simply say unaware. Instead of saying not sure, you can simply say unsure. This is extremely useful because it makes you a more concise speaker. In other words, you can communicate more ideas by using fewer words. This is also useful if you ever take a proficiency exam such as Cambridge or IELTS, because these tests usually give you a word limit for you to write your essay. So you want to be able to communicate more with less. Second, it helps you with spelling. Let's do a short experiment. So grab a piece of paper and write down the word unsuccessfully. Pause the video if you need to. So, could you spell this word correctly? Let's check. Now, this can be a tricky word to spell because it's full of double letters. However, if you do the mental exercise of getting to the root first, it becomes much easier. If you break this word down, you have unsuccessfully. A common mistake that I've seen some learners make is writing the word successful with double L. Even some natives do this. But notice that the suffix full only has one L. However, the word successfully is written with double L. Now this is because we now have the L from full with L from li. See how this can be helpful when it comes to spelling? Finally, it helps you to decode the meaning of long words. Now, learners of any language usually panic when they see a long word. Well, you don't need to be one of them anymore. Understanding the basic idea that prefixes and suffixes give to a word also helps you to decode meanings. So for example, spinelessness. Again, we have the root, spine, and the two suffixes, less and ness. The suffix less means without. For example, cashless means without cash. So spineless means without a spine. The suffix ness means the state or condition of. For example, kindness, which is the state of being kind. So the word spinelessness means the state of being without a spine. By the way, spine is the long bone that we have in our backs. However, we call someone spineless to say that this person doesn't have any courage. So the best way to remember new words and phrases when you learn them is to use them as soon as possible. But I know for a lot of you, you say that you have the problem that you have plenty of ways to listen to English, to read English, but there's just not enough opportunities to speak English. Well, don't worry, because we decided to go ahead and solve this problem since we've heard it so much from learners like you. We created the Real Life app, which is the only place where you can go, press a button, and connect instantly to another English speaker in another part of the world for a fun and dynamic conversation. You can speak about your hobbies, your passions, discover other cultures, or even just chat about the weather if you want. And of course, you can practice all of the new words that you're using today, or maybe even teach someone else about this concept of word formation. So why don't you give it a try? It's absolutely free. Just click up here or down in the description below to give it a go now, or you can search for Real Life English in the Apple app or Google Play Store. All right, now that you know why you should master prefixes and suffixes, let's get into how to implement word formation. All right, so the first thing that you want to do is divide the words in English into 4 categories, which I'm sure you already know: nouns, verbs, adjectives, and adverbs. Then you need to learn the main prefixes and suffixes to form each word class. For example, there are specific suffixes to form nouns, specific suffixes to form adjectives, and so on. Let me give you some examples. Example of noun suffixes: ship, membership; meant, employment; ants, importance; dumb, wisdom. For example, many people look for employment opportunities at the beginning of the year. Examples of adjective suffixes: able, recognizable; less, sleepless; if, comprehensive; full, forgetful. For example, I've had many sleepless nights since my daughter was born. Example of verb suffixes: ify, beautify; eyes, economize; en, strengthen. For example, I work out every day in order to strengthen my muscles. Example of adverb suffixes: li, calmly; li, politely. For example, he calmly answered the phone. Some examples of prefixes include im, immature; irrelevant; ill, illegal. For example, I know what you mean, but the point you're making is irrelevant to the discussion. Now you can make this easier by using word maps. Choose a word and write it in the center. Then look up other possible formations of the word and add them to the word map. Notice that some words will have more than one variation for the same word class. Also, some words might not have variations in all word classes. For example, the words employee, employer, employment, and employability are all nouns. The words employed, unemployed, and employable are adjectives. We have one verb form to employ and no adverb form. Now I can imagine this feels a bit overwhelming. So many prefixes and suffixes, so many possible new words. But don't fear, the more you expose yourself to complex words, whether it is when you're reading a book or watching your favorite series, the more naturally that you will be able to do this on your own. Now, when I speak Spanish or Catalan, for example, I often take risks to invent a word that I don't know by adding some prefixes or suffixes. Now, it doesn't always work, but I'd say about 80% of the time it does. And you can tell pretty quickly when the person doesn't understand what you mean. So for you, the Longman Dictionary is an awesome resource to check out the different word classes in English. And by the way, we've recently recorded a podcast episode about word formation. I'll link it down in the description for you to check out later. Now let's go back to that text from the beginning of the lesson. I love my grandma. She's very wise, but sometimes forgets things. She believes spending time with family is important because it makes our relationship strong. She always speaks to people in a polite way. All right, now let's turn the selected words into other possible formations. For example, we can turn the adjective wise into the noun wisdom. Then we can turn the verb forget into the adjective forgetful. Then we can change the adjective important into the noun importance. The adjective strong into the verb strengthen. And finally, the adjective polite into the adverb politely. But of course, that's not all. Since we changed the word classes, now we need to use other structures in order to make them fit. So instead of she's very wise but sometimes forgets things, we can say she has a lot of wisdom but is forgetful sometimes. And instead of she believes spending time with family is important because it makes our relationship strong, we can say she believes in the importance of spending time with family because it strengthens our relationship. And finally, instead of she always speaks to people in a polite way, we can say she always speaks politely to people. Now let's compare both texts again. Pretty cool, isn't it? Notice that the information in both texts is exactly the same. But if you know how to use word formation well, then you have more options at your disposal to express yourself. And that is one of the differences between intermediate speakers and advanced speakers. Advanced speakers know other ways to say the same thing, which gives them more flexibility to communicate. By the way, are you enjoying this lesson and want to learn more about word formation? If you are, then leave us a comment down below saying, I want to deepen my knowledge of word formation. Did you see how we use word formation in that example? To deepen means to make more deep. So if we get enough requests, then we will definitely make you a lesson on this topic. Oh yeah. All right, so in the last part of today's lesson, we will test your knowledge of word formation. So there will be 6 exercises and they will slightly increase in difficulty as you move from one question to the next. Each sentence has a blank space. At the end of each sentence, you will have the word you're supposed to use in parentheses. Why don't we take a look at an example? My grandma can be at times. Now what form of the word forget best fits in that sentence? If you said forgetful, you are correct. My grandma can be forgetful at times. Now you can pause the video if you need. Are you ready? Let's begin. Back to the Future was an popular movie in the 80s. Extremely. Live Aid is perhaps one of Queen's most memorable of all time. Performances. We call it a 6-figure salary when someone receives of at least $100,000 a year. Payments. My grandfather was extremely about psychology. Studying people's behavior was his great passion. Knowledgeable. It was after the release of his 1982 album Thriller that Michael Jackson began to enjoy a truly ascent into stardom. Unprecedented. Power napping is an effective strategy. However, the conditions must be right and practice is required too. The effects. Maximize. So how'd you do? Notice that sentences 5 and 6 are slightly more difficult and advanced than sentences 1 and 2. Awesome job today. In this video, you learned what word formation is, why it is important, and how it works. The better you become at word formation, the more advanced, sophisticated, and fluent you will sound. Now, aside from improving your vocabulary, being able to understand fast speakers is also crucial if you want to have excellent English. We've recently made a lesson covering 5 secrets to understanding fast English. Let's watch a clip from that.
I can only watch movies with subtitles. If I turn off the subtitles, I get so lost. Natives speak so fast. I can understand my teacher, but when I listen to someone else, I don't understand anything. My listening is really bad. I get so frustrated when I have to ask someone to repeat what they said. How can I improve my listening?